Have you heard of the Tube Challenge? The aim is to visit all the London Underground stations in the shortest time possible, and it is tracked as a Guinness World Record. I took on this challenge spontaneously, putting together a rough plan the day before and attempted to visit as many stations as I could. After waking up at 4:30 in the morning and taking the first available train to Wimbledon, I arrived there at 5:53. I crossed over the bridge and then boarded the 5:57 District Line train and went to Earl's Court. I arrived at Earl's Court at 6:15, then went quickly down the stairs to change platforms to board the District Line train to Richmond. The train to Richmond left at 6:18. In Richmond, I ran straight across the platform into the train that was just about to depart to get back to Turnham Green. I arrived at Turnham Green at 6:47, went down the stairs to get around to the other platform, and got there just in time to see another train to Richmond departing. For my train to Ealing Broadway, I had a 10-minute wait. At 6:58, I got the District Line to go to Acton Town. I arrived at Acton Town at 7:03 and then had a 4-minute wait to get the Piccadilly line to Heathrow. We arrived at Heathrow Terminal 4 at 7:32 and then got to Terminals 2 and 3 at 7:44. Went through the gates and then spent some time watching the planes. Back at the train station, I got the 8:52 Elizabeth Line train to Ealing Broadway. I got to Ealing Broadway at 9:08 and then boarded the District Line train to Ealing Common that left at 9:14. I got to Ealing Common at 9:19, then crossed the bridge to get to the other platform to board the 9:21 Piccadilly Line train to Uxbridge. I got to Uxbridge at 9:54 and then went to change trains for the Metropolitan, which would get me back to Ickenham. But I accidentally incorrectly boarded the later train, so I was a bit delayed, but luckily these trains run quite often, so it wasn't too big of a problem. After arriving at Ickenham at 10:05, I only had 5 minutes to locate and get to Austin's A Stop A bus stop to get a 10:10 U1 bus to West Ruislip. After getting to the bus stop just about on time, the U1 bus didn't turn up, but instead a U10 came, which also got me to West Ruislip station. I arrived at West Ruislip at 10:14, crossed the road and then went to the station to get the 10:18 Central Line train to go to Shepherd's Bush. The train arrived 3 minutes late at Shepherd's Bush at 10:46. This means I only had 6 minutes to get out of the station, run 700 meters to Goldhawk Road, get into the station and catch the planned Central Line train. I got into the station just in time to hear the beep of the train doors closing and watch it drive away. Luckily, the next Hammersmith and City Line train was in 5 minutes, so I didn't have long to wait. I arrived at Baker Street at 11:13 and then went to get the 11:16 Jubilee Line train to Wembley Park. I didn't get the quicker Metropolitan Line train in order to stop at all stations along the way. I got to Wembley Park at 11:33 and then switched for the Metropolitan Line to West Harrow at 11:36. I arrived at West Harrow at 11:46, got out the station and ran the 1.2 kilometers to North Harrow station. I got there at 11:55 in time to get the Metropolitan Line train to Moor Park at 11:58. After arriving at Moor Park at 12:08, I got the 12:15 train back to Wembley Park. After arriving back at Wembley Park at 12:34, I went over to change platforms to get the Jubilee Line train to Stanmore. At Stanmore, I only had 1 minute to change train to go back to Cannon Spark in order to get the bus to go to Edgware. I arrived at Cannon Spark at 12:52 and went out the station to the bus stop to get the 3:40 bus to Edgware station at 12:56. I got to Edgware at 1:02 and then got a Northern Line train going through Mornington Crescent at 1:09. I later found out that Mornington Crescent station was closed, so the train just went through. I got to Euston at 1:34 and then switched for another Northern Line train going up to Mill Hill East that departed at 1:46. At Mill Hill East, there's only one platform, so the train just waits there. He had to wait around 8 minutes until it departed again. Back at Finchley Central at 2:15, I ran across the bridge to get the 2:16 train to High Barnet. I got off the train at 2:27 in High Barnet and left the station to find a bus stop to get the bus to Cockfosters. The 384 bus arrived at 2:39 and I boarded it, ready for the 20-minute bus journey to Cockfosters. After arriving at Cockfosters at 2:56, I went to board the 2:59 Piccadilly line train to King's Cross St Pancras. After arriving at King's Cross St Pancras at 3:28, I changed for the Victoria line to Walthamstow Central at 3:31. Here, after arriving, I went to the Queen's Road station to change for the Overground. Here the train was delayed and departed 3 minutes late at 4. This means I would miss further trains on the Central Line loop. I arrived at Leytonstone High Road at 4:05 and ran to Leytonstone station. After getting to Leytonstone, I got the 4:14 train as I missed the 4:09 train that I planned to get. I arrived at Hainault at 4:32, just 4 minutes after the shuttle to Woodford had left that I would have got onto if not for the Overground train being late. I had to wait 20 minutes for the next one. I arrived at Woodford at 5:01 and waited for the 17:09 train to Epping. I arrived at the end of the line at Epping at 5:24 and waited for the train back which departed at 5:30. I got to Stratford at 5:58 and then switched for the Jubilee line which departed at 6:04 to Canning Town. Here for the first time on my trip I experienced rush hour. At Canning Town, I took a bit of a diversion by taking the DLR to London City Airport at 6:14. I got to London City Airport at 6:21, took a little bit of a look around, and then got back on the DLR at 6:32 back to Canning Town. Back at Canning Town at 6:38, I switched back to the Jubilee line to go to Baker Street. I arrived at Baker Street at 7:02 and switched for the Bakerloo line to go to Embankment. I got off at Embankment at 7:12. Now I wanted to go round the Circle line in an anti-clockwise direction, but there were no Circle line trains, so I got the First District line to Tower Hill. At Tower Hill at 7:26 there were still no Circle Line trains available. I decided to go to Aldgate East to change for the Hammersmith and City Line. I arrived at 7:38 at Aldgate East and then switched for the 1947 Hammersmith and City Line train to Great Portland Street. After getting to Great Portland Street at 8:05, I ran to Euston to get the Northern Line down to Morden. I got to Euston at 8:15. I went down to the Northern Line platforms to take a train via Charing Cross, but there weren't any to Morden, so I had to switch at Kennington. I arrived at Kennington at 8:31 and then changed to a train to Morden at 8:32. I finished my journey on the London Underground at Morden at 8:55. In total, I visited 196 tube stations, 3 overground stations, 4 Elizabeth Line stations, 3 DLR stations and 2 airports. I started at Wimbledon at 4:53 in the morning and finished at Morden at 8:55 in the evening. The whole journey took 16 hours and 2 minutes, and I travelled over 400 kilometers. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Feel free to share your thoughts down in the comment section below and let me know if you've ever tried or plan to take on this challenge in the future. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more. See you next time.